Bibles, if you would, and turn to the book of Lamentations. Okay. Part of the message tonight is God is faithful even in the bad times. The back of your outline, if you would look at the back, says the fact that bad things happen doesn't mean that God has abandoned his plans. Has God been faithful to you during a bad time? And I want you to think, first of all, not about what the Lord's been faithful to you in a bad time, but what those in the Bible that God was faithful to during a bad time. And we'll go ahead and start with a few of those if you can remember. I didn't think we would start quite this way, but I believe that's the way we'll start tonight, and then we'll go to Lamentations. And boy, that third chapter of Lamentations, when I read it again today, I wrote down, the woe is me man. But he wasn't saying, woe is me. Now he did one time. I don't remember where in Jeremiah. I think it was Jeremiah. He said, woe is me. And I used to joke that he must have had a horse called Isme, and he was telling it to woe. And but we find that, and we'll get to chapter 3 of Jeremiah momentarily, we'll find that there were problems in his life. And don't turn to, I said Jeremiah's Lamentations 3. When you can't find it, when we do try to turn, it's after Jeremiah. All right, it's one of those books you don't go to very often. And every now and then, I have to look at the index in the front. All right, I'll admit it. Not that I have seen your moments, but I have to admit it. God is faithful no matter what happens in our life, and he has not abandoned his plan for your life. Old devil wants to get a foothold in, and he wants to try to make us think that because something this went this way and something went that way or the other, and not the way we thought it ought to be, that God has abandoned his plan for our life or he's abandoned us. But God's faithful even during those times. Anyone think of a Bible person, I hate to use the word character, but that's the word we use, who God was faithful during their time, their bad time? Job. Okay, was all of those Job? Okay, Job. God was faithful to Job. Now Job had a bad time. Daniel. God was faithful to Daniel, and boy, Daniel had a bad time as well. Any others? All right, let's stop right there with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Or what's their other names? Hananiah, Azariah, Mishael, and what's that? Job. Joseph. Okay. Well, let's go back to the three Hebrew children. What did the three Hebrew children say when the king said, you're going to go into the fire furnace, and if you don't bow down, we're going to heat it so many times hotter than it was wanting to be heat. Now that's got to be a Mississippi word, wanting to be heat. And I ain't never wanted to be heated. I don't think that furnace did either, but all that times hotter. We're going to throw you in if you don't bow down. And what did they say? O king, we are not hasty to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God will deliver us. But if not, we will not bow. Boy, now that was Bill's version. I missed a few words. But in the bad time, that was a bad one. Joseph, man, we got Joseph. It was a bad time when what happened? Bad time when his brothers decided, we're going to get rid of this rascal. Daddy likes him more than he likes us. Daddy gave him a coat of many colors. How many of you have, if you have a younger sibling, how many of you think the younger one got away with everything? I'll put both hands up. If you're the youngest, you probably won't put it up, but I'll put both hands up. Maybe our parents just learned a little bit more by the time the young one come along. I don't know. or maybe they didn't want the young one to leave the house. But they just seemed to get by with everything. And old Joseph, he got by evidently. But you know, if you look at the character of Joseph's life, he didn't have to be told twice to do anything his daddy told him. He honored his Lord, he honored his family, and boy, it was bad for Joseph. But it was not only bad there. Now the one brother said, let's figure this out. He's thinking a way not to kill him. They wanted to kill him. They get him down in that pit, and what happens? The Midian traders come through, and they take him down, sell him as a slave, gets in Potiphar's house, and man, it's going to be good. He's living high class. And Potiphar's wife says, you know what? And he says, no, it ain't going to happen. And so she grabs him, and he takes off, and his coat is there. I don't know why, both times there, it's a coat, but it is. And but he takes off, goes to prison, gets in prison. He interprets some dreams for some people, and they forget about him. And all at once, one of them, the king says he has a dream, and he said, there's a guy in prison. And boy, all of a sudden, all of those years, I don't know how many years it is. How many years does it seem like when your brothers want to kill you? If it's 10 minutes, it seems like 100 years. How about when the Midianite traders get you? It seems like hundreds of years. How about when you're in Potiphar's house and then you know she's going to lie and you're in trouble? And how many of the years he was in prison do you reckon that seemed like? But God hadn't forgot him yet, had he? And Joseph, Brother Billy said in our adult class here, he was the physical savior of the world. At that time, not the savior of our soul, but of the world. He delivered all of them. Hadn't it been for God using him, there'd have been 7 years of plenty, and they'd do what every young person does now. They get a $50 bill for, I don't know if you get $50 bills. Maybe they got rich parents. For their birthday. And they get that $50 bill and eat it up and get rid of it without saving a dime, without putting anything back. That's what would have happened. But because of the dream Joseph interpreted, there was 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine, and there was enough to feed the world. Take care of the world. You see, when the bad times happen, it doesn't mean that God's against us or that he's forgotten us. It means he's got a greater plan than we can see. Boy, that's always interested me, because I never expected to amount to anything. All I wanted to do is get out of school. All I wanted to do is work a job and get by, have something to drive and just get by. That was it. That's the only initiative I had. And the Lord had a different plan. I ended up in Bible college and ended up then getting drafted into the service 2 years after I was supposed to have been drafted, 2 years later. And then come back and finish Bible college, and then didn't want to pastor. I ended up as an assistant at a camp, a youth camp, and assistant pastor in Mississippi. And then the Lord tricked me, told me I was going to start a youth camp, and you know what? He put me right into pastorate. Now, I'm glad that he did all of that. He had a plan. I couldn't see it, but he had a plan. All the negative things that happened, and all of the, when you're in the ministry, sometimes people tell lies on you. The fellow that I worked for at the youth camp began to tell people that I had stolen money from that youth camp. There was money missing. Now, it wasn't stolen. It was just, what do we call it in the military when you take something that's for this purpose and use it for something else? What's that, brother? Yeah, we used a different term. I don't remember exactly what it was. Not pilfering, but anyway, we used a different term for it. And it was there, and he didn't want to tell everybody he had used it for something other than its purpose was. And so he said, yeah, he must have taken it. Boy, that was hard, until I saw one of them one day, and he told me about it, and I said, do you believe that? He said, no. He said, I know. In fact, he married the fellow's daughter. He said, I know where it went. I said, yeah, but you spread it, didn't you? He said, yeah, I did, because that's what my father-in-law told me to do. And they thought it would put me out of the ministry. All it did is put me further in. All it did. God has a plan. Doesn't matter what we think. Was there any others that you were thinking of? I'm sorry? Paul. When you think of the Apostle Paul and the plan that God had for him and the things that happened to him, and every one of them, can you imagine as he's there punishing Christians, even putting some to death and doing all of that, and the whole time the Holy Spirit of God working on his heart? Boy, it looked like it was for bad, but it was for good. They put him out over the wall one night, had to get him out of there because they was going to kill him. All the things that happened to him in life. You see, there's so many things. We get the idea that negative things means there's something wrong. Negative things means God's working on us. Now, by the way, if you bring it on yourself, don't call on me. In another church that I pastored, I won't say anything because Miss Jan will ask me who it was, and I'm not going to tell. But there was a man and a woman, both of them over 6 foot tall. He was taller than her, but they were both over 6 foot tall. And she got to running her mouth one day. She worked on construction jobs. She got to running her mouth one day, and her husband told her. He said, just quit. You're stepping in a man's shoes. You don't want to do that. And ladies, if you're 6 foot tall and as muscular as a man, you still can't whip that man. I'm going to tell you. God made men a little bit different. And boy, when she got up in that guy's face and he called her some really ugly names, she said, aren't you going to do something? He said, yeah, I'm going to let you take care of it. You started it, you finish it. If you've started it, go to the Lord and ask Him to forgive you and for Him to take care of your problem. Because you don't need to get it started. You don't need to bring any trouble into your life. All right. Was there any other that we need to say? Who's that? Gideon. Well, when you think about all of these things, you know, we could go back. There's so many. How many of the greats in the Bible had to be broken before they could be used? Well, there's some tremendous messages on brokenness. I've not been able to preach any of those messages at this point. But one of them, okay, brother? Jonah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
And he
got out alive. You know, and it was Jonah's fault. He went the wrong way, but God used it for His honor and His glory, didn't He? And see, and that's the key to all of life, is that we just can't give up, go over in the corner, stick our finger in our mouth and suck it, or was it Little Jack Horner, put it in a pie, you know, all that kind of stuff. You can't just do that. You've got to move on. God's still got a plan for your life. He hadn't give up on you. Don't you dare give up on Him. One of the greats of the Bible is David. And David brought most of his own problems on. And if you read in the Psalms, at least one time David said, mine own iniquities have overtaken or overwhelmed me. I don't remember the exact word now. He said, my own iniquities have done this. But it wasn't always that. Maybe after David killed Goliath, maybe he had a little pride problem. I don't know. But he got squeezed out real big when Saul started after him. Saul started after him because Saul knew God wanted David as king. And David was hiding in caves and everything else. But you know what? God has a purpose in our lives. He has not given up on us. Lamentations chapter number 3. I'll not be able to read it all, but I'm going to skip through some very quickly. Chapter 3, verse 1, I am the man that hath seen affliction by the rod of His wrath. He hath led me and brought me into darkness. Boy, it don't sound like it's a good thing. I know some preachers that felt that way when they were called to certain churches. I won't call the name of the church down in south central Louisiana, but I think they had about 9 preachers in 3 years, and I knew 3 of the preachers, and they said, I know the Lord led me there. I know that He did. I said, well, maybe He did, but He taught you something if He was the one that led you there. And the one that's there now, I said, when he accepted it, I knew about it, and I said, brother, do you know what you're doing? He said, it's the Lord. I've been there forever. And now, and things are really doing right now. Sometimes you think you've been led into darkness, And it says, and not unto light. Surely against me is he turned. You know, sometimes we take our problems and dwell on our problems instead of dwelling on the problem solver. And maybe you have limitations. Somebody pronounce it. That's what it is. And you think, well, I'm limited. I can't do anything. Well, look what so-and-so can do. Well, so-and-so's got more muscles than I got. That's what the guys think. And I'm going to have to learn how to fight and be a better fighter because I don't have any muscles as the other one. And the girls, you know, that girl's both eyebrows are the same size. Uh-oh. I see some of the girls looking. You have to paint them so they're the same size, huh? Yeah, I've seen that. And how in the world can I get a good husband when I got one eye lower than the other or one eye darker than the other or whatever it is? God's got a plan for your life, and you don't want somebody that just wants right eyebrows. You don't want somebody that wants you just because both eyes are the same way. You want, number one, somebody that is the will of God for your life, but somebody that will love you and care for you. Let's move on. My flesh and my skin, verse 4, hath made old. Yeah, some of us know that. And hath broken my bones, hath builded against me and compassed me. Here's a guy that's saying, if it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. And God's doing this to me. And God's doing it to me. It's not somebody else, and God's doing it to me. You're going down all the way down to verse number 16. He hath also broken my teeth with gravel stones. He hath covered me with ashes, and hast removed my soul afar off from peace. He's taken my peace. I forgot prosperity. He said, I got to the place where I didn't even think of prosperity. And I said, my strength and my hope is perished from the Lord. Remember mine affliction and my misery, the wormwood and the gall. In other words, for those of you that don't like sauerkrauts, yeah, it's a plate full of sauerkraut. My soul hath them still in the remembrance, and is humbled in me. This I recall to mind. Therefore have I hope. Now, I don't want you to go back and list all them other things. Now you remember something. And he says, this is the reason I've got hope. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed. You know what he's saying? As bad as it is, and it looked pretty bad to me what he's saying. As bad as it is, it could have been worse. Could have died. It could have been worse. And it says it's of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because of his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. And why? Verse 24, the Lord is my portion. The Lord is our portion. That's why that it's better than what it looks like it is. And that's why we have hope, because the Lord is our portion. If you try to, girls, you try to get somebody with makeup, when you start getting old and your eyebrows and everything else sag and fall off and everything else, if that's all was looking for then you're in trouble when it gets that way. When guys, if you think you're going to get a girl by being muscular or whatever, wearing whatever cologne they tell you got to wear, and by the way, I'm not against cologne. It does help boys smell better sometimes. But if you think that's the way you're going to get them and that's the way you're going to keep them, and boy, yeah, you're going to come home from work one day and she's going to smell your stinky feet and shoes and breath and underarms and everything else that you sweated all day. And she might pick up some of those undershirts two-fingered and have to put them in there because it smells like some dog. Y'all don't know this, and I want to be kind and nice and sweet. You ever see a dog roll in a dead skunk? And then come home with the stink of the dead skunk on him? I have. I run the dog off. Go somewhere else till you don't have that stink. And you know what they want to do when you try to run them off? They want to rub up against you. You don't get people because of all the physical attributes and all those things, all the allures of this world. The Bible talks about our countenance. It's the attitude of our hearts. Well, when that's right, you'll find the right Christian husband or wife. You'll find the right one when it's God's time for that to take place. But we find that it's his faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. That's what he's saying after a whole 19 verses, or 20 verses, after all of that woe is me, and he doesn't use the word woe is me, but after all of those things, he said, great is his faithfulness. You see, problems happen in life. Physical problems happen in life. Financial problems happen in life. Family problems happen in life. And I think I already said physical problems happen in life. And because of that, we've got to remember we're in his hand. And we've got to go to him. And really, we've got to say, thy will be done. Sometimes he gives us the desire of our heart. And sometimes he does what he does for the Apostle Paul. My grace is sufficient for thee. That's a hard answer to prayer, but it's what Paul got. And we have to be those kind of people. Well, I have not gotten to the message tonight. The basis of the message is God's faithfulness, and don't turn, but out of John chapter number 9. In John chapter number 9, Jesus finds a blind man. The blind man's eyes are healed. His sight comes back. Jesus leaves. After Jesus leaves, the Pharisees go around trying to find everybody, and they say, this looks like the same man, but he's not the same man. He's not the blind man. Jesus didn't do that. And they even say this, we know that God doesn't hear sinners, calling Jesus a sinner. He healed on the Sabbath day, and so he must be a sinner. And that same crowd, I promise you, that same crowd, if they had an ox in the ditch, would get it out. But they wouldn't see somebody healed for any reason, because they know Jesus is taking their place. That they are losing their power, they're losing their authority. All of that takes place. And they ask his mother and his dad, and his mom and dad, they know these people. They know that if they say anything that these Pharisees and Sadducees don't want to hear, then they're going to be put out of the temple, the worship center there. They're going to be put out as well. And they say, he's of age, ask him. Don't put that monkey on my shoulder, ask him. That monkey on my shoulder is not in the Bible. Okay? But ask him. And they find him and they ask him, pray tell us, is this man a sinner or no? And he said, I don't know, but one thing I do know, once I was blind, now I can see. They put him out. They said, you can't worship with us. Now, he couldn't worship in the temple anyway. He was blind. It was against the rules. But now they didn't want him around the outer court or anywhere else. Stay away. We'll have nothing to do with you. In other words, they blacklisted him. And Jesus knew that they had put him out. And you know what Jesus did? He went by and asked him. He said, do you believe in the Son of God? He said, I do, but I don't know who he is. Jesus said, I am he. He said, then I believe. You know what Jesus was doing? He's being faithful God. Well, when that story come to me, it's to show that Jesus was being faithful God. It just amazed me to think about how many times he's come to my help. He's come to my side. Not the side of I've chosen, but come to me and help me through whatever the difficulty was. You see, great is his faithfulness. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Heads are bowed.